Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, we are exactly 24 hours away from Donald Trump's exit and Joe Biden's inauguration. Meanwhile, D.C. on lockdown. Keystone XL, Immigration Laws, Defense Production Act. Joe Biden has a very long day one to-do list. And as COVID mutations arise, there is a mad race to fix Trump's vaccine failures beginning tomorrow. Speaking of which, Trump lifts a virus travel ban and fails in stripping civil service protection from tens of thousands of federal workers on his last day at work. Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell hammer out a power-sharing deal today. Will the Dems be taken to the cleaners? Atlanta prosecutors are moving to start an investigation of Trump's interference in the Georgia election certification. Meanwhile, a mixed bag from progressives on Biden's latest executive appointments. However, one of those includes the historical pick of Rachel Levine to Assistant Secretary of Health, who will be the first transgender federal official confirmed by the Senate. Members of right-wing militias and extremist groups are charged across the country in the Capitol attack as suspicions grow that newly elected representative from Colorado, Laura Boebert, was in on the attack. Lastly, Proposition 22, the labor law degrading new law in California, worse, even worse than we had originally thought. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. What is the beginning of the week for us? And with me, as always, Emma Vigeland. Hello, Emma. Did you have a nice day off yesterday?
I did. Well, actually, I spent a great majority of the time with the TV repairman. We were 6 feet apart in Mass, but it took like 5 hours to fix my internet and cable. So it wasn't that fun, actually, when I think about it.
You're the first person I've heard in over 25 years say the words TV repairman.
What else would you call him?
Was he from the cable company?
Yeah.
Okay. The cable guy.
Sure. Not Larry, but he was a cable guy.
There used to be TV repairmen because there was problems with TVs. Now it wouldn't be worth to have a TV repairman to come. The TV's so
well, I'm an old soul, so
I understand.
I use those kinds of terms.
All right. Fair enough. Yesterday, of course, Martin Luther King's birthday. I encourage you all to go back and listen to the interview that we did with Gerald Horne. If you missed that, he is a professor from University of Houston and just a fascinating scholar at large. Last night in New York City, New York Police Department really attacked peaceful Martin Luther King Day protesters, I guess you could call them. There wasn't that many of them, but it really was a stunning juxtaposition with the way that we saw police react to the folks who overran the Capitol building and the sort of the just wanton and really in many respects inexplicable aggressiveness and brutality of the police in New York City.
Especially on the heels of the New York Attorney General's suit against them.
Yeah, it's pretty stunning. And hopefully our next mayor will be able to rein in the excesses of our police department, which sometimes you just get the feeling that they're just they've lost sight of what their agenda is, or maybe this is their agenda. I don't know, but it really highly problematic. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., we keep hearing about whether there will be a peaceful transfer of power. We have already passed that threshold where you could say we've had a non-peaceful transfer of power. When you have a mob that is incited by the president of the United States, saying this colloquially, although I think arguably he did it legally, a mob incited to go in and crash the Capitol as they are attempting to certify the votes. There is no peaceful transition. That your opportunity to maintain a peaceful transition of power has already gone out the window. And to ensure that there's no further violence associated with the transition of power, at least within Washington, D.C., we have over 21,000 National Guards troops basically blocking off almost every street in a very wide radius around the Capitol. Here is a clip of this from Manu Raju. This is this morning, National Guard troops marching through the streets.
I imagine it.
We're going to let it roll because this is really extraordinary. The number of troops that we're seeing marching through the streets. I mean, this is just seemingly endless number of troops. And
yeah,
I think that's good. We don't need to keep going, Brendan. But there is just an extraordinary amount of troops there. It's not that they have or at least that we're aware of any specific broad threats, but there was, I think, a sense after the failure of most of these agencies involved on January 6th, a desire to not have a replay in any way. But again, the idea that we have to have all those troops out there is indicative of the fact that we have failed in executing a peaceful transfer of power. That's it. That ship has sailed. We don't have the opportunity to exhibit that. I mean, I think it's an important feature of American democracy. Your mileage may vary, but to the extent that it has any value, rhetorical or otherwise, we have failed in that.
Well, many people failed, but I think specifically quite a few people failed by implementing this kind of propaganda project. I mean, Roger Stone registered the Stop the Steal domain name back in 2016. This has been premeditated, if not by Trump, because I don't think he can see, 2 inches in front of his face. He just reacts, but by people around him. And this was the natural way that things were going to go down based on that premeditated plan by Republican operatives and including the president. Fewer and fewer people are culpable are claiming culpability for it or are still on that train. There are certainly many people who are culpable, but this was a project by the Republican president and it instigated this violence. So there has to be consequences for it, as we keep talking about on the show, because that's not normal. We shouldn't be seeing 20,000 troops marching in our capital because the president incited violence on behalf of his own electoral failures.
And let's be clear too on this point. There were, 140 Republican Congress people who voted against the certification.
Yeah.
This is not just a handful of people. There were almost a dozen Republican senators who voted against the certification.
Well, Sam, after the insurrection, it dropped to just 8 Republican senators. So
fair enough.
Obviously, the GOP is completely redeemed.
But the point being here is that the enablers are even in some ways more relevant. Donald Trump, obviously, but Donald Trump is gone as of tomorrow. And I imagine he is still going to be a figure in our news and our political sphere, for broadly speaking. But the Republican senators who remain, the Republican Congress people who remain, this is, certainly the majority of Republicans in the House, and arguably a majority of Republican voters who bought into this entire conspiracy theory. There has to be a broader awareness on the part of the media, on the part of Democratic leaders, that this is who the Republican Party is. And any notion that there's going to be, that they have fundamentally shifted just because Donald Trump has left is, I think it's not only absurd, it's not only a fallacy, it's dangerous. Because
it's like a fairy tale that hurts people, right?
Exactly.
It's like it's not just a storybook or a story that you tell your kids at night to make them feel better, or in this case, the Democrats tell themselves to make themselves feel better. There are consequences. It's like it's got magical powers that reverberate throughout society. Obviously, yeah.
If you don't recognize the existence of the people that enabled Donald Trump, I can assure you, they will be enabling the next iteration of Donald Trump. It's just a question of when.
And who will probably be smarter than Donald Trump and more competent, which is scary.
Terrifying. All right, let's take a quick break. Just a reminder, this program relies on your support. You can become a member at jointhemajority.report.com. Also, today, after today's show, check out the Nomiki Show. You can find the Nomiki Show at youtube.com/the Nomiki Show. Chris Lombardi, Napoleon de Legend, and Joshua Kahn Russell will be on the program. Also, today's show sponsored by, this is Michael for a long time tried to get me into meditation. So he'd be a little bit excited about this. Because I've been actually using this, not as much as I should, but I've been using it, which is, believe me, a massive leap in terms of attempting me to be a little bit less stressed. I don't know if you ever noticed this yet, but I'm a little bit high stress.
What?
I don't know if you picked up on that.
Look, I want to get into meditation, so I need to try this because I'm in the same boat as you. Yeah.
Apparently 34% of Americans made a resolution to be less stressed this year. I don't have a citation for that, except for it's just they put that in the copy.
Well, God clearly just came up with those statistics after hearing
I would be surprised if it's that low, frankly. This has been a pretty stressful time.
Oh, totally.
Headspace is here to help. It's your daily dose of mindfulness in the form of guided meditations in an incredibly easy to use app. Well, I find the whole process to be incredibly used. It's advancing the field of mindfulness and meditation through clinically validated research. There are apparently 25 published studies on Headspace benefits. There are 600,000 five-star reviews, over 60 million downloads. If you need help falling asleep, if you feel overwhelmed, I got both those. Headspace has wind down sessions and 3-minute SOS meditations. There are even meditations for kids. Here's the thing that I use Headspace for. They don't mention it here, but there are walking meditations.
Nice.
And I walk it's probably the only healthy thing I do, probably at this point in my life, is I walk an extensive amount, almost daily. And these meditations are not that long, actually, but I end up practicing them a little bit after the guided meditations. And with the walking meditations, instead of listening to yourself to breathe, which apparently does not work for me because I immediately just start thinking about things I got to do. You pay attention to how you're walking, your gait, I guess you would call it. And I mean, I don't know that I've seen a massive difference in my stress level, but I feel like I'm starting to get into it. Like I'm getting better at it. Look, everybody deserves to feel a little happier, a little less stressful. Headspace is meditation made simple. Go to headspace.com/majority. That's headspace.com/majority. You get a free 1-month trial. You get access to Headspace full library of meditations for every situation, so you can try them all out over the course of a month, see if it works out for you. It's the best deal offered right now. Head to headspace.com/majority today. Headspace.com/majority. Check it out. We had another ad for Quip, but it was for this product that I haven't gotten, but I'm waiting. Quip, I don't even know why I would talk about this, but they sent me I use one of those, like, I use flossers.
Okay.
Quip now has so embarrassing. I'm talking about this. They have a flosser now there's a refillable. I'll go, eventually they'll have us advertise for it. I'll tell it. It's
wait.
awesome.
What do you mean? Like putting different little floss things?
Yeah.
So you don't have to keep getting those plastic.
Yeah.
Ooh, can I get on that train, please?
It's so awesome.
AKA, can I have some of what you get?
But they sent me one for the gum, and I haven't tried the gum, so I'm not going to do it. But we will, just a reminder, it's your support. Also, check out the AM Quickie, amquickie.com, amquickie.com. Get your 7 minutes of headline news. Okay, so getting back to some of the stuff that we can anticipate, you always hear a lot of day one stuff, and it's obviously, for the most part, metaphorical, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, half the day, at least, Joe Biden tomorrow is going to be prepping for the inauguration, I would imagine. That is like, get up, you take a shower, you brush your teeth, try and put yourself together a little bit. It's going to start at noon tomorrow. We are going to be covering it, for the most part, we're going to be covering it live. We're also going to be talking to some folks who are hoping to push Joe Biden to the left. There is certainly, and we're going to go through another, a couple of picks. There's certainly some indication that Joe Biden can be pushed. Some of his cabinet picks, good, some not so great. We will talk about those. Some of his executive picks, good, some not so great. And I say this with the understanding that Joe Biden was not my preferred candidate. He was pretty low on the list of my preferred candidates. However, I do think that Joe Biden, in many respects, just tries to get into the center of where the Democratic Party is. And that is a fluid thing. And as those of us who are to the left of the Democratic Party or within the left of the Democratic Party, that fluidity can be fashioned. Here is the AP, just with a brief list of things that he is intending to do on day one. A lot of this stuff, obviously, you can't actually do, but you can sort of basically make commitments to what you're going to do. So, for instance, immediately following the inauguration, he will be signing a declaration that the U.S. is rejoining the Paris Climate Accord. That's good. Yes, signing a declaration that the U.S. is rejoining the World Health Organization. He's going to be issuing ethical standards for his administration and an order prohibiting interference in the operations of the Justice Department from other parts of government. Something that you would think that you would not need to necessarily establish. It should have been established. He will be starting the process to restore 100 public health and environmental rules that the Obama administration created and Donald Trump eliminated or weakened weakened, there is a process, and one of the biggest. There's a couple of major implications about the Democrats taking the Senate, right? One of them, obviously, is that it's going to make it much easier for Joe Biden to get his appointees through. It's going to make it easier for him to get his judicial nominees through. It's going to allow the Democrats to pass things through reconciliation if necessary. Those are bills that specifically deal with the budget. The other is the Congressional Review Act. And this allows the House and the Senate to basically reverse any of Donald Trump's executive actions that were filed within a certain number of working days, which can actually go back to like 6 or 9 months ago in the last term of the Trump administration. And what it does is when Congress reverses those, not only does it reverse those, it creates a higher threshold for Congress in the future for going back to those. So in other words, if Donald Trump says the EPA no longer going to or is going to recalculate the way in which environmental harm is done, where they weigh the economic cost to a company for protecting the pollution to our water as being higher as it might have been before. When Congress reverses that, if a future Congress wants to reinstitute that, it's going to take a 2/3 vote in Congress. So this happened with the Obama administration. Unfortunately, there's a lot of rules that are tough to be reestablished. Now there's an opportunity for the Democrats to do this. And I think that process being started is the administration flagging these things for Congress. There's going to be.
Well, no. I think that's all great stuff. And especially in contrast to what we've experienced over the past 4 years, it's a stark relief. And I'm also super encouraged by the rhetoric that I'm hearing out of someone like Janet Yellen, right, who's saying to Congress that we need to go big on stimulus.
Yep.
That's a huge encouraging sign from the Biden team. Now, that's just one step. The other part is negotiating with the Senate and ensuring that they don't cave, right? And that's a big if with Biden. But you've said this before, and I borrow it now all the time about how Biden just wants to place himself at the center of the universe of where the Democratic Party is at a current point in history. And the work that's been done by progressives over the past 4 years plus, specifically sparked by Bernie Sanders' 2016 run, that's shifted, even if it's not to the degree that we want, but what's possible in the Democratic Party, and thus it's shifted Biden. I don't even think he really fully deserves a ton of credit because he's not ideological in that way, but it does. But, maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe he does deserve credit because he could have just been 90s Joe Biden. But back in the 90s, that's where the party was. Right. The party's in a very different space right now. And that's right. Encouraging. That's a reason for optimism. And I know both sides, Republicans equal Democrats, that's simplistic and easy for people to understand. And it's also disempowering. And right now in this current political moment, it's not true. It's not true. It was a lot closer to the truth 4 years ago than it is right now, to be honest, even if Joe Biden is the representative of the Democratic Party.
Well, continuing on with those things, start the process of rejoining the deal, the Iran nuclear deal.
Yep.
Executive action to end travel restrictions on people from a variety of Muslim majority countries. Executive action to protect from deportation children who came here, people who came here illegally as children by no decision of their own. That is the reinstitution of DACA. We're going to talk a little bit more about immigration in a moment. Executive action to make masks mandatory on federal property. On federal property.
And international travel. That was the other thing.
Well, yes, Donald Trump is ostensibly going to stop the bans on international travel out of a fear of these new strains of COVID. Biden, I imagine, is going to reinstitute them on day one. There will be an ask of everyone to wear masks for 100 days. Steps to extend pandemic-era restrictions on evictions and foreclosures. The education department is going to be asked to, and I imagine will, extend the student loan payments and interest for millions with student loan debt. We will see if Joe Biden, at the very least, has promised to send a bill to Congress to relieve $10,000 worth of student debt. He has the ability, many people argue. In fact, I haven't heard a cogent argument that he doesn't. If they have the ability to put a pause on recouping student loan payments, then you also have the ability of forgiving those loans. In fact, we have many programs where student loans are forgiven in specific instances. All executive action, he has the ability to do that, and hopefully there'll be enough pressure that maybe
although they
he
are
does
watering
if it doesn't
it
happen
down
in Congress.
They seem to already be watering it down a little bit.
Oh, without a doubt.
Expectations, but yeah.
Without a doubt.
So that's a huge disappointment in my view in terms of what they're expecting.
We'll get more into this immigration legislation that is expected to go to Congress as part of an offer to pass citizenship for 11 million people in the country who are here without documentation. Legislation to go to Congress to repeal liability protections for gun manufacturers. This is a huge deal. Tightening some other aspects of gun control. There is a longstanding law in this country. There's really only two industries that have any type of liability protection that come from the use of their products if they're being used properly. And that is vaccine makers. Because of public policy, it's impossible to create a vaccine for something, let's say like COVID, where some small percentage of people don't have an allergic reaction. So far, knock on wood, the reactions to the millions of doses of COVID vaccine that has been out there has been relatively mild allergic reactions. There is some report of a batch of Moderna vaccinations in California that they are concerned about
I think they recalled it. I think they officially recalled that 1/10 of the vaccines that were put out there. Yeah.
But generally speaking, the vaccine as it's produced has provided, very little reaction. Now, it's conceivable that 1 out of 1 million people who get it may have some adverse reaction. And so the vaccination companies, because this is part of a public policy measure, their liability is dealt with in a separate court system, vaccine court. The only other industry that has anything even remotely like that is the gun industry, which has a liability shield for their weapons, not if they malfunction. They are subject to the same liability standards there. And we've covered a horrible story about Remington that hid a default in their guns for years. Horrible in the past. But these guns, if they're used properly, kill people on a regular basis. They kill toddlers, they kill neighbors, they kill friends, they kill myriad people. And they are protected from liability. Whereas in the future, if this liability protection was to go away, consumers might have a case to say to gun manufacturers, you have the ability to make this safer. You could put fingerprint IDs on it. We have it on our phones now. You could easily put this on. You could put other trigger protections that would make your product safer and not have it kill people accidentally in the way that it does, or so easily, like a toddler who finds the gun and ends up shooting themselves. There's a reason why we have on medicine bottles kid protection, because we found over time that kids can get into these bottles, and there's an obligation for these drug manufacturers to do that. So that's a big one. And there will be new ones going out after that. He's going to institute the Defense Production Act. It is unclear how that's going to go about, in an effort to ramp up the production of not only the vaccine, but apparently there is, and this is just sort of bizarre that we're talking about stuff like this, in the Pfizer vials of vaccines. Right now, most hospitals or distribution centers are getting 5 doses out of these vials. And that is because of the nature of the syringes that the government has procured but apparently there are other syringes that can actually pull 6 doses out of these vials. That is an increase of almost 20% in terms of overnight. However, there's not enough of these latter type of syringes being made. It's conceivable the Defense Production Act will be used to get more of those type of syringes out. We should also talk about these immigration laws. He has the ability to reinstitute DACA and I believe DAPA, which is the extension of the DACA protections from the children who were brought here illegally to also their wider family members.
Yes.
He will also send a legislation to the House and then presumably to the Senate. Do you want to go through some of those, Emma?
Well, I mean, basically what this immigration proposal would do in broad strokes is they say modernize the immigration process, but in short, it would allow for a path to citizenship, which I think would take 8 years. 8 years. Also make it easier for asylum seekers along the border. And really what it does is 11 million undocumented immigrants. Biden's proposal gives them a path to citizenship. It's longer than I would propose. 8 years is, I think, way too long. There's an indentured servitude quality to it, but it is obviously an improvement if we're looking at the gutter of immigration reform and policy, which is the Trump administration.
So they would have a temporary status for 5 years, and then they would get a green card after 5 years. And then within 3 years after that green card use, they would be able to apply for citizenship. And that also, obviously, the DACA stuff you can do by executive action, but they would make that statutory. They would, and it's unclear to me, but there's 3 prongs to this. Like you said, the border management, you talked about that. It would supposedly, broadly speaking, move the refugee and asylum programs back to a more humane and orderly process. There would be a hope to reinstate the program granting minors from Central America temporary legal residence in the United States. That program was ended by the Trump administration in 2017. It would set up a reunification program for Central American relatives of U.S. citizens and would allow those who have already been approved for U.S. residency to be admitted in the country rather than waiting at home for an opening. We have plenty of room in this country. And on top of which, and it's unclear to me what specifically they're talking about, but they are recognizing, at least in their rhetoric at this point, that one of these prongs in dealing with citizenship needs to address the causes of migration, which are economic and safety in a lot of these countries. We've talked in the past at Honduras.
Does that connect to our drug policy? Like that seems fairly broad, but is there any? I didn't see
no indication yet of what that's going to be.
Right.
But we do know that, Honduras, one of the murder capitals of the world. There is, you've got still a lot of paramilitaries there and a lot of drug, like you say, drug cartels. And we know, and I would imagine Joe Biden knows, one would hope, after decades of a war on drugs, that it's been an abject failure in every single possible measure you could, whatever metric you use for the drug on the failure of the drug, the war on drugs, it has failed.
Drug use, drug addiction still static or has gone up, and funding just continues to go up. And then just lastly about Biden's immigration, the way he adjusts the federal government's relationship with ICE. I mean, he theoretically has the power to break the contracts with ICE that the Trump administration expanded, but he's not going to do that. Obviously, he's come out feverishly against abolish ICE, even though that's my position. But does he change their funding? Does he allow for immigration and customs ICE basically to have less power and less kind of immunity when it comes to the brutalization of immigrants? Is he going to change that relationship? I think he will do so marginally, but we'll have to see.
Well, I mean, if we're going to put all 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country on a path to citizenship, one would expect that ICE's role, at least internally in the country, would be greatly diminished, and should be. There's no reason for it at that point. And so hopefully we will, there will be a certain amount of sort of questioning of how are we dispersing our resources when we don't need an ICE? You want to put people at the border? I mean, I would prefer if you would demilitarize the border, frankly. But certainly internally in the country, you don't need, if you're going to allow it. Now, this applies to immigrants who have been here since January 1 of 2021. Part of that is they want to discourage people from coming, but I think, frankly, we're going to have to deal with that process in a better fashion. We shall see. We were talking about the COVID response, and this is going to be the big issue, I think.
The defining feature of
without a doubt,
of his presidency, potentially.
Without a doubt. The big, I guess, dilemma that we have now, he is trying to get 1 million doses of vaccine administered per day. Apparently, as of last week, it's reported by David Dane at the American Prospect, they're pretty close to the 1 million a day you need if you want to hit 100 million in 100 days. 900,000 daily doses is the 7-day rolling average, according to David Dane over at the Prospect. So to get to 1 million per day doesn't seem like that huge of a task. The problem is that there are new variants of COVID-19, including the B117 from Great Britain, that are, while not any more lethal, far more contagious. And so you're going to need more than 100 million doses in that first 100 million days if you want to control this pandemic. And
just so people are clear, it doesn't seem like the vaccine, its efficacy is affected by the variants. It just increases the contagiousness, and thus, obviously, we're going to see ramping up death. I mean, it could, but that's not what we're seeing right now.
Right. I mean, the bottom line is there's just not enough evidence out there yet to make any definitive statements on what the implications of these more contagious variants are. I mean, nobody's quite clear on, are they more contagious because you can get them by touching things? Is it they're more contagious because they travel through, non-N95 masks more efficiently? Is it that you can get a bigger viral load quicker? Do they replicate quicker within the human body? None of these things are clear yet. There's just simply not enough data and evidence. The scientists are studying it.
It does seem to affect the efficacy of the antibody drugs, though.
Is that right?
Yeah, from what I've read.
We will see. I mean, a lot of this stuff, again, is we haven't gotten there yet. But the big key is going to be to ramp up the production of what they call these high dead space syringes as opposed to the low dead space syringes, so that you can get an extra 20% out of these bottles of Pfizer vials of vaccine that need to go out. And that's going to be the big challenge, or at least one of them, by the Biden administration. And 3 days ago, they confirmed what a lot of us suspected they would do. They're going to use the Defense Production Act. How they're going to do that yet, we don't know. It's going to be a function of where they see the greatest need. We were talking about Donald Trump rolling back the lifting of the virus travel ban. Biden folks are adamant that they're going to prevent that from happening. The other last-minute attempt that Donald Trump had was, we spoke about this in the past couple of weeks, a Schedule F directive. It was essentially a directive to to undo the civil service protection for tens of thousands of federal workers, ostensibly to get in more political partisan people into these positions. And what it really is ultimately a part of was the Trump agenda from early in the Trump administration. Steve Bannon, when he was part of the administration officially, I suspect he's still quite in contact with Donald Trump.
Much like Roger Stone, just creeping behind the scenes, making things happen, and destroying whatever's left of our democracy.
I'm sure you remember when Steve Bannon went to the CPAC, which is the conservative, the big conservative confab they have every year, and said,
I go every year, right? Have a great time. No.
I would be surprised if you haven't covered it in the past.
I actually have not. That's almost too awful for me to consider going there.
It's like
I would rather go to a Trump rally.
It's like Comic-Con for the worst people on the planet. Yeah. And so at CPAC, Steve Bannon announced that their number one agenda was the destruction of the administrative state. And when you remove the civil service protections from our government workers, you make these positions become highly politicized, highly partisan. You lose the expertise. You lose their protection to do the right thing based upon science or good, sound public policy, because they are either afraid of political retribution or they are in themselves highly politicized. And so this is one of those things where apparently the order, the paperwork needed to reclassify these affected employees will not reach the president's office until after tomorrow. And this is a prime example of how, I think people who work in big companies know that there's certain things you can slow walk. And this is probably one of those. The Biden administration and President Biden is not expected to sign those things.
Well, it's almost like, these civil servants, they got this paperwork. They had to, do all these things. Oh, it's going to take a lot longer. They don't want these Trump appointees being burrowed into their agencies and gumming up the works. It was just, look, you got to love it, right?
Yep. All right. Let's play this clip. We meant to play this earlier about the National Guard presence in Washington for tomorrow. Here is Tucker Carlson, who, incidentally, I should tell you, was reported by, I think it was Politico Playbook this morning, as having dinner with George W. Bush in Florida. They both own homes in a town in Florida, I guess.
I thought Tucker was anti-war and rebranded himself as a paleo-conservative. That's what I'd heard.
He's going through a rebranding of the rebranding. He is the right-wing populist who, by my count now, has a house in Maine and a house in Florida. May also have one in New York, I imagine, unless he stays in an Airbnb there when he does his show. He's the one who said, don't take the masks and all that too seriously. Right. Of course, then had his own, was in Maine broadcasting for some strange reason. Yeah.
What kind of tie is he going to wear in this third iteration of himself? He had the bow tie. Now he's at the it's a bolo tie.
Bolo tie is next.
Right.
And we should also say
that's why he's meeting with Bush.
reportedly, according to Politico, they were having dinner at a third party's house. So it's nice that all these folks are having dinner parties. I remember those. I imagine they're all wearing their masks indoors while they have this dinner party. But here is Tucker Carlson. Instead of suggesting that the presence of National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C. is a function of the insurrection that was driven by his network's insistence that the election was stolen by Joe Biden. He sees something else nefarious in the idea of having National Guardsmen in Washington for the inauguration.
Woman may have been trampled to death by the crowd. As of tonight, those are the 3 casualties we can confirm from the riot at the Capitol building on January 6th. In response to that, our leaders have assembled the largest military presence in Washington in all of American history during peacetime. In 1864, as the Civil War raged on the other side of the Potomac, and Americans died every day in large numbers in battle, there were fewer federal troops protecting Washington, D.C. than there are tonight. And it's truly a national force. The Guardsmen you see in Washington have come from every state in the Union, as well as from Puerto Rico. And the question is, why is that? There's no practical or operational justification for it. For decades, Washington, D.C. has had the highest per capita law enforcement presence in the country, and one of the highest in the world. So there was no need to fly in troops from Alaska to keep the city safe. But keeping the city safe was hardly the point of the exercise. The murder rate in the District of Columbia has risen with terrifying speed over the last 6 months. Men, women, and children shot to death in the streets. But no one in charge seems to care about that or even notice their deaths. So no matter what they are telling you, those 26,000 federal troops are not there for your safety. Instead, unmistakably, the Democratic Party is using those troops to send the rest of us a message about power. We're in charge now. We run this nation from Honolulu to our colony in the Caribbean and everything in between, very much including where you and your family live. Do not question us. Men with guns enforce our decrees. We control the Pentagon. And indeed, they do control the Pentagon. Republicans have spent years ignoring the leftward drift of our officer corps, but we can't ignore it now. The mask is off. Our military leadership, the very same generals who howled at the idea of deploying American troops to stop an invasion of our southern border, those same generals sent tens of thousands of soldiers with rifles to Washington purely as a show of force on behalf of the political party they support. And once they did that, they then allowed Democratic politicians to degrade and politicize the military itself. Democrats in Congress demanded that the troops sent to Washington this week submit to a political purity test, ideological vetting, as they put it, to make certain that every soldier professed loyalty to the new regime. Not loyalty to our country, not loyalty to our Constitution, but loyalty to the aims of a specific political party. Nothing like that has ever happened in America. And just a few months ago, it would have been unimaginable.
Okay, first of all, nothing like that has ever happened in America, and nothing is still, as of today, has happened like that. There was no, the questioning of these soldiers was not as to their fealty to Joe Biden. It was, are you sure you're not a white supremacist? Are you sure you're not an extremist, like the ilk that Tucker Carlson and his network encouraged to believe that the election was stolen? In fact, what's amazing about this is he's continuing on with the exact same project that drove people to attack the Capitol here. He is continuing on with the same level of paranoia and conspiracy theory. Now he is saying both, on one hand, that the Democrats ideologically control the military because they refuse to go down to the border. Laughable. And B, they also disregard the military simultaneously. So they both control and disparage the military. And what is going on here, I think, from a symbolic perspective, is the idea, because we know how much Donald Trump tried to politicize the military. We know this. And this is an attempt for our government to say, we all support a peaceful transition of power, and we are not going to let anybody to continue to interfere with it. And when Tucker Carlson characterizes this as some type of oppression of free Americans, that you cannot speak and you cannot talk, as opposed to recognizing, and of course he starts off the clip by minimizing only 3 deaths, because the other 2 deaths don't count, but only 3 deaths, as if you needed more deaths on a storming of the Capitol building to justify why people might be concerned, particularly with what we have seen from these right-wing paramilitary groups talking about, their invasions. It's unbelievable. And I should also add, this is a network which came to a legal settlement with the family of Seth Rich, who they touted as having been possibly assassinated by some combination of the DNC and Hillary Clinton's, octopus of killers. Essentially, they settled with the Seth Rich's family for millions of dollars for what they did to the Rich family. But part of the settlement, and we only know this as of this weekend, because part of the settlement was that they could not reveal this settlement happened prior to the following the election.
Curious.
Very odd position for a media outlet to take, that they don't want this information that the Seth Rich, that they are conceding to the complete fiction of the Seth Rich conspiracy, that they haven't conceded, that they don't want that out before the election. That is a very odd position to take for a company that ostensibly doesn't have a stake in the election of somebody. I mean, this guy is so incredibly disingenuous, and it is so dangerous what he's continued to allow to say. At this point, you would think there would be a slight amount of regret in the minds of folks like Tucker Carlson. And frankly, where's George Herbert? Where's George Bush, W. Bush, who supposedly, had a problem with what Donald Trump was doing? Why is George Bush meeting with this guy for dinner if he is not on board with ginning up this type of conspiracy?
Well, I mean, Tucker Carlson, he's so against the usage of the military, of members of the police being used to advance the agenda of one political party's ends. I mean, they are supposed to be a neutral force, which is why I'm sure he stood up to the claims from the right wing and from his own network that the Insurrection Act should be used on Black Lives Matter protesters over the summer, or when Trump gassed peaceful protesters outside so we could get a photo op. I mean, it's so disingenuous that he is pretending to clutch his pearls about this when there's no evidence to support it, and when there was actual politicization of forces that use deadly weapons, not the military in of itself, but the surrounding institutions. Nothing. He said nothing about that.
Nothing. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk just a little bit about some appointees that Joe Biden has picked and is considering, and maybe how you can help Joe Biden make a good choice when it comes to some of these DOJ appointments. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back in just a moment. So the American Prospect, they've been crushing it as of late. We've had David Dayen on, I think it was last week or maybe the week before. They had a report on Friday in conjunction with The Intercept. It was confirmed and expanded upon on Sunday by Reuters that Joe Biden is leaning toward 2 attorneys with deep experience advising monopoly platforms to head the Antitrust Division at the Department of Justice. I mean, this is, when you talk about the revolving door and you talk about one of the problems, regulatory capture, this is what, this couldn't be a better example. Now, again, Joe Biden has not chosen these people yet. And one gets the sense that somebody's putting up a trial balloon. If these stories get out, you can, we will put a link at majority.fm to a petition that is being pushed by Public Citizen to prevent these people from sitting in these positions. One is Renata Hess, former Justice Department official, so she has some experience, worked under the Obama administration. She also worked with Ted Cruz, defending Google as a defendant 10 years ago. She helped shepherd the Amazon Whole Foods merger. I mean, we're talking about two of the biggest platforms here that have been engaged in what a lot of people think is antitrust violations for years.
And certainly Amazon has engaged in abusive workplace practices. So we're talking about
checks
Amazon
off every box.
The worst of the worst here.
She represented several pharmaceutical companies and other clients in antitrust cases. She is now the leading contender for the Assistant Attorney General for Antitrust. This is according to the Prospect and the Intercept on that Friday. There's another attorney, Juan Ortega, another Obama Justice Department veteran who defended J.P. Morgan Chase and several other financial firms in fraud cases and represented AT&T in its merger with Time Warner, also being considered. Now, look, I come from a long line of lawyers. I think that lawyers should be able to represent whomever they want in private practice. However, to handle these many cases, protecting against antitrust, the fact is that you are way more than likely to be inclined to seeing antitrust in a specific way.
You have relationships with the executives that you're supposed to be regulating. I mean, this is more than just revolving door. This is especially in the tech realm, because of the amount of donations that big tech funnels to Democratic politicians. You can only see this as corruption, in my view.
And we'd say that a couple of years ago, apparently Hess seemed to dismiss antitrust as concerns from Google's control of the online search market. She said in a Federal Trade Commission hearing, when she was presumably not representing, the reason why people use Google search generally is because they like it better. Well, that may be the case, but when you push everything else out, I mean, it's just, look, we've talked about this many times on the show. There is a pre-Robert Bork / Ronald Reagan perspective on what antitrust and monopoly means and what is problematic about it. One is a measure of antitrust, just as does it provide cheap goods for consumers? And the other is, does antitrust provide an even playing field for competitors in a market? Does it protect citizens? Does it diminish corporate power? And it's the latter that I think we desperately need to reinstitute in this country. And you don't need to change any laws. It really comes down to personnel. Now, there's another apparently candidate, Jonathan Cantor, who has co-chaired the Antitrust Department in a large corporate firm, but has helped file suits against some of these big companies for their antitrust violations. So, like I say.
Yeah, and just quick point, the Democrats can't clutch their pearls about Trump's Twitter violations and social media violations and the spread of misinformation on Facebook, which is a massive problem, in other platforms, and then simultaneously appoint people who are not going to break them up. Those are inconsistent views, and it's based in corruption and donations and a way too cozy relationship between the Democratic Party and big tech.
Without a doubt. On the upside, great pick for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Yeah. Biden
will nominate Rohit Chopra. He was at the, I think it was the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, a Elizabeth Warren acolyte, and as you know, she established that committee in the first place. So, but if folks want to find that that petition to pressure Joe Biden on those antitrust things, we've got a link at majority.fm. If you missed any part of this show, check us out on Peacock. You can find us on the Choice app, 5 p.m., 10 p.m., and then on demand. Check it out. All right, we will see you tomorrow. And for those of you who are sticking around for the fun half of the program, we will see you right now. You're still seeing us.
Hello.
The magic of video. Just a reminder, it's your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member today at jointhemajority.com. Reminder, the No McKee show happening right after this one at 3 p.m. On that program today, Chris Lombardi, Napoleon the Legend, and Joshua Kahn Russell. Reminder, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority. You get 10% off. And the AM Quickie, 6-7 minutes of headline news. You can find it at amquickie.com or on anywhere in your podcast. Completely free. You can check it out on YouTube at our other channel, Majority Report Live. The Majority Report Audio, I think it is, or Majority Report Live. I don't know, you can find that. Don't forget the Antifada. They're now doing a Twitch stream, twitch.tv/the Antifada or patreon.com/Antifada. Matt, what's happening in the Matt Leckian media universe?
Yeah, on Thursday on Left Reckoning, we're going to have Milton Alamati, TMBS regular, going to talk to us about kind of an international perspective about what's all happening and also what's happening in Uganda with Yoweri Museveni and Bobby Wine. And on Literary Hangover, there's going to be a new episode this weekend. We're going to talk about Bacon's Rebellion and what happened at the Capitol and kind of draw some analogies there. And we'll talk about William Byrd's first year of his secret diary in 1709. So look forward to that, Literary Hangover fans. Patreon.com/Literary Hangover.
Bacon's Rebellion. I'm taken back to history class.
A lot of relevance in Bacon's Rebellion.
Yeah.
I guess let's take a moment and we will go to the fun half, 646-257-3920. Right?
Yeah.
And for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you can imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost has what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ Dannerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Dannerky.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder.
I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are...
Psych. Fuck them.
Almost has what?
What?
Almost has what?
Hell of a lot of bank. 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 Hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black Africans. And the alpha males are back.
doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on. Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em. Fuck 'em. Fuck things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are anticipating the Nomi joining us, but apparently she's having internet issues. God.
Oh, right. Today's Tuesday. Jeez.
I would like.
It's Monday. I thought Jamie was joining us.
We need
I know the day off Monday is really confusing. I was completely turned around. But folks, I just want to say this. Obviously, it's January. Pretty excited. Donald Trump is leaving office tomorrow. Obviously, we're hoping Joe Biden will be significantly less horrible. And obviously, people are getting very weary, I should say, of the pandemic. Hopefully, there will be a rollout of even more vaccinations. But I can promise you, the best is yet to come. And how do I know? Because I learned it from a video yesterday.
The best is yet to come.
Oh my God. No, that's not going to work. Louder.
The best is yet to come.
Jesus.
Stand by. The best is yet to come.
Okay, so one could be charitable and say they're trying to poke fun at themselves, but those people are horrible. So that's...
It reminds me, I watched over the weekend Stanley Nelson's documentary on crack, and it just makes me wonder, what exactly is going on in the Guilfoyle Don Jr. household.
You know what it reminds me of is Michelle Malkin had a video where she did a cheerleading thing for Republicans and conservatives. You remember that? It's just the cringiest thing in the world. There's just nothing worse than seeing people who are not even remotely close to being amusing or funny, thinking that they're being amusing or funny. Now, remember, there's someone paid shooting that video, incidentally. This is not like a selfie that they did together and they're like, hey, come on, this will be funny. They staged this. They had someone shooting it. They had
first
that person.
They blew some lines. And
can
then
I
did
say, it. Can I go through this? Just one thing that just drives me nuts as someone who used to be formerly a director, particularly of this type of stuff a little bit. Can we play it back? Watch.
Do you want it like this?
No, no, it's the camera pan. Oh, play them. Hold on. We'll do this. Run this one more time. Then we'll play the Malkin thing. It's the beginning. Watch this. When she comes in, the camera tips in that she's coming by panning to her before she comes in screen. It just drives me crazy.
An overeager phone director.
Poor. This is not. Is this a phone? Oh, it's custom live. No.
The best is yet to come.
See, there's the pan. Wait, no.
See, they tip it early.
They tip it. That just drives me crazy. Now,
stand by.
Jesus.
The best is yet to come.
Look, and I'm not even sure she's louder.
Funnier than he is.
Yeah.
They're both bottom of the barrel, but he is so aggressively uncharismatic and trying so hard. It's hard. It's difficult to watch.
And because it's Throwback Tuesday, let's put this gem up just to remind people of just
how
close
unfunny
enough.
they
But
can be.
yeah,
Sam, I want to ask you this. So this is from Michelle Malkin's official YouTube page, and it was uploaded on April 25th, 2007. How many views do you think it has right now?
50 million.
500,000.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, this is so bad that it should be famous.
Oh my God.
The Defeatocrats cheer.
This war is lost. This war is lost. This war is lost.
Give me an L. Give me an O. Give me an F. Give me an E. Give me an R. What does it spell? Harry, read, failure, defeat, surrender, surrender. Go, donkeys, go!
This war is lost. This war is lost. This war is lost.
Oh my God. Ay.
So that was just an excuse for her to wear a schoolgirl outfit
Exactly.
for her Sims.
We
Sounds good.
gotta rebrand you as a cheerleader. So, that was super disturbing. Let's go to the phones.
There's Naomi, by the way. I think she should be.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go to the phones as she's coming on. Calling from a 210 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good afternoon, Sam, Emma, and Nomiki. It's John from San Antonio.
John from San Antonio.
John.
Welcomes Nomiki
Hello.
to the show. Hi, Nomi.
Hello, Sam and Emma. And John. And Matt and
John,
Brendan.
what do you got for us today?
Yeah, the assault on the Capitol was a terrible tragedy, but it's important to remember the purpose of storming the Capitol was to disrupt or change the counting of the vote so that Trump would be declared the winner. Activists talk about huge structural changes to the Constitution, like going from the Electoral College to the popular vote, or returning Citizens United with a 2/3 vote in the House and the Senate, as well as 37 states. But this election has taught us that a process where Congress can overturn the results of an election, like the 139 Congress people and the 8 Republican senators voted to do, and having the possibility that state legislatures can say who would be the winning candidate in any particular state should also be eliminated from the Constitution. I'm frightened and truly dread the possibility that in 2024 or later, a candidate can win the presidency but not be seated by an irrational House or Senate. It's been 2 weeks since the Democrats had took back the Senate, but which will drastically change the direction of the country. And in many cases, the early vote totals can be misleading, but concerning the Georgia state Senate races, they were spot on. With the final tally in, turnout has been tremendous for the special election, and black turnout was especially phenomenal. 91.8% of the black voters who voted in November showed up to vote in the special election, which is higher than the average rate and the percentage of white voters who showed up. The districts containing Atlanta and the suburbs had the smallest drop-off rates from the November results, and District 14, where QAnon believer Marjorie Taylor Greene represents, had the largest drop-off rate. The assault on the Capitol was such a shocking event that has rightfully overshadowed the votes by the 139 House members and 8 senators. I know the midterms are not on everybody's minds, but running ads against legislators in close districts could be devastating. I put a list of the top 100 or the top 31 closest districts where the representatives voted to overturn an election about a week and a half ago on Twitter, and I hope the negative ads in these close districts would doom these seditionists from winning another election. So Republicans seem to be running scared. There's some press reports about changing the structure of how electoral votes are counted in 3 states, with Nebraska going back to a winner-take-all system. Biden won in Nebraska's 2nd district. Currently, they vote for one vote for each of congressional districts and 2 for the winner of the state. And Wisconsin and Michigan are thinking about going to a vote where each of the congressional districts would get 1 electoral vote and the winner of the state would receive 2 votes. Other Republicans, operatives, are wanting to expand this to other states that Biden won, like Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Georgia. If those changes would have been enacted, Biden would have only won with 272 electoral votes instead of 306. Right now, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania have Democratic governors, and whether they win in 2022 will have a big impact on whether the changes will be made. I know a lot of people don't trust the exit polls from November, but they consistently showed in swing states that voters that identified as Republicans outnumbered Democrats. And the reason why Biden won is that he won independents by a wide margin. I know November of 2022 is a long way off, but was the violent assault on the Capitol such a major event that will ingrain an independent voter, that will be ingrained in independent voters' mind? If you want to comment on any other part of what I said, please do so.
Well, John, I appreciate the call. My feeling is that it will be ingrained upon those people's minds if the Democrats trying to ingrain it in people's minds. And so far, I'm not convinced that that's going to happen. There is, just far too much of an attempt to provide unity and to throw it all on Donald Trump. And the fact of the matter is Donald Trump would not have been able to do any of the things that he did if it wasn't for the complicity in the enabling of the Republican Party. That's just the bottom line. And so I'm afraid that we're not going to see the enablers held to account to the extent that they should be. But appreciate the call, bud.
All right, thank you.
Also, they just, this just shows Republicans. I mean, we know this. It's not a secret. They just think so far in advance. They know that in the meantime, right now, they have control over these legislatures and they might actually be able to do these things. I mean, in Arizona, while it's a blue state, there's a Republican legislature. Wisconsin, same thing. Michigan, I'm not sure what the makeup is, but I think it's split. I mean, this is in Pennsylvania, a perfect example of Republican legislature, a crazy Republican legislature in Pennsylvania. So, this has always been their game. And if Biden's just willing to sweep it all under the rug and say, let's move on for the sake of unity, this is what we're going to see in 2022. And we can't rely on these major waves. We can't rely on people in their in their towns, organizing like they're doing in Georgia. That's not fair. That's not why people are Democrats. That's not why they donate to the Democratic Party. So I hope Jamie Harrison, sees that, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up Michigan. That's such a good one because the lesson that Whitmer took from the blocking of everything by the Republican legislature is just to fight them really hard. And I wish other Democrats would use her as an example. She's not capitulating to them. She's the aggressor, which is good.
She shouldn't be because they wanted to capture her.
Yes.
So.
Good point. I mean, right.
You don't want to show weakness in that situation. I mean, that's left of the box. Left of the box IMs. Am I shadow banned? I've sent in a bunch of IMs that haven't been read. It's cool if I am. I mean, it's great to be noticed enough to be shadow banned. Even if I've been banned, I still love you guys. I'm used to unhealthy relationship dynamics. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that last part. You are not shadow banned. A lot of times it's just a question of sometimes I do it in order. We're going to come up with, ultimately we'll come up with a slightly different system, but that is, I don't know. I don't know the best way, could jumble it up or I don't know. I don't know exactly.
A meat counter ticket. Just take a ticket.
Exactly. Well, that's sort of what it is now. But the problem is that by the time I get to the meat counter, when we were cutting up the roast beef, we're already on to the turkey or the cheese.
Sounds like a nightmare for your digestive system, but
Indeed.
Yeah, right.
All right, here's my point. I'm so reluctant to play this audio. I can't even tell you, but it's disturbing. I'm playing this more because it's Pelosi than it is because it's Hillary Clinton. As far as I'm concerned, Hillary Clinton, she's a private citizen. She can go on and do whatever she wants, obviously, and it's her business. And I can, I should.
But she's doing this to influence lawmakers, and people still listen to her for some reason. So,
I mean, people, I can understand, as far as I'm concerned, I'm treating her in my mind, I treat other celebrity figures who I just don't care about anymore. And fine. But she's talking to Nancy Pelosi. And this is what I find upsetting. And this is my point about it's one thing to hold Trump to account. We need to. There should be investigations. There should be investigations into his finances, really, more than anything else.
Yep.
And
Because it might lead to his family also being blocked.
It might
from
lead to his
future
family.
office,
It's
They
also,
seem to be punting that to New York.
We need
it seems
to
like the
be-
federal government's doing nothing about that. But
we need to be investigating, like, the amount of corruption in this administration by far was amazing. The idea of investigating his personal relationship with Vladimir Putin seems ludicrous to me. Investigate his finances. If you find that they have anything to do with Russia or Ukraine or, I don't know, UAE or Saudi Arabia or, China, whatever, or just private enterprise, good. But listen to this exchange and tell me that the notion that Donald Trump was enabled to do all these things by those 139 congressmen and 8 senators, and I guess you could say 12 because they were prepared to do it and they were pushing this whole thing prior to the insurrection. The idea that you would not even contemplate them, but rather the idea of who Donald Trump was on the phone with at the time this was happening is just, it's bat crap crazy. Play this.
We learned a lot about our system of government over the last 4 years with a president who disdains democracy and, as you have said numerous times, has other agendas. What they all are, I don't think we yet know. I hope historically we will find out who he's beholden to, who pulls his strings. I would love to see his phone records to see whether he was talking to Putin the day that the insurgents invaded our capital. But we now know that not just him, but his enablers, his accomplices, his cult members have the same disregard for democracy. Do you think we need a 9/11 type commission to investigate and report everything that they can pull together and explain what happened?
I do. Let me, again, to your point of who is he beholden to, as I've said over and over, as I said to him in that picture with my blue suit,
right,
as I was leaving, what I was saying to him as I was pointing rudely at him, with you, Mr. President, all roads lead to Putin. I don't know what Putin has on him politically, financially, or personally. But what happened last week was a gift to Putin because Putin wants to undermine democracy in our country and throughout the world. And these people, unbeknownst to them maybe, are Putin puppets. They were doing Putin's business when they did that at the incitement of an insurrection by the President of the United States. So.
Okay. So is Hillary Clinton going to be deplatformed for floating that conspiracy theory with zero evidence?
Apparently
and then also,
not.
And Nancy Pelosi, punting this to Putin and what happened and the violence that we witnessed completely absolves her and other Americans and other American lawmakers from looking in the mirror at what conditions created that violent mob of right-wingers and white nationalists and Trump loyalists and QAnon folks, what allowed them to feel like they were able to just bulldoze through and an attempted insurrection. I mean, like it completely absolves lawmakers in the United States of responsibility, and it absolves Republicans of any real introspection and Democrats for their complicity in not holding these people to account, as you say, Sam.
First off, let's just start with just the actual sort of mechanics. The idea that Donald Trump is on the phone with Putin as if like Putin's sitting there going like, make sure they go into the left door. That is the way that they can get into the chamber. I mean, like, give me a break.
Do you think she believes that? Do you think she actually believes it?
I think she's living in an alternative reality where the presidency was lost because of that, and she can't get out of it.
It's an ego thing.
How does Pelosi? I mean, I'm less concerned about Clinton. If Clinton wants to have these fantasies, go with God. You know what I mean? Like, write a book about it. Do the research. You have time on your hands. You have people. You could hire researchers. You could do an exhaustive report on your own. But for Nancy Pelosi to say, I don't know what he's beholden to on all these different things, when guess who has held the apparatus of investigations for 2.5 years? It is You have demanded every subpoena comes through you. You could have gotten Donald Trump's taxes, but you told Richie Neal not to do it. You have the ability to get all of this information if you wanted it. So if you don't know the answers to this, maybe you want to be rude. More power to you. I'm rude. And you want to brag about being rude, but you could have done these investigations. And the bottom line is, look to your colleagues across the aisle and find out like what was going on there. Hold these people to account. The idea that this is about Putin, you could have done these financial investigations in the House. You were in charge of the House.
We did.
You could have investigated anything you wanted to.
We did Russia for 2 years. There's no evidence that this is a winning issue for Democrats. None.
That's the operative word. Actually, I do think it's a winning issue for Democrats.
I don't think so.
I don't. Maybe not the House, but in their minds, it moved over just enough people. You had the Lincoln Project folks on board with this. I mean, it moved over just enough people for them to win. They're not looking to win sweeping numbers. It's about these little margins of winning so that they don't piss off their donors. What I see this as, listen, I think there's a very strong case to be made about a petrostate, meaning Russian influences and the oligarchs and Putin and his allies and the people below him who are literally investing in far right-wing movements all across Europe with very similar tactics, propping up on sites through cryptocurrency backed sites. There's a lot of research into this. But ultimately, if you want to make that case, as Sam just said, make it through the investigation of the finances, unless you're afraid of what those finances also reveal about the Democrats, which is why it is easy for them to just say Putin. Because it's now a party thing.
And I don't even know if it's
party.
They're afraid of the Democrats. I mean, look, there's a lot of people in this country who are anti-democratic, and they're pouring money into politics. So, it's not just a question. I think it's more just like general moneyed interests might not want that. I also
think statists, like it's the statists versus the whatever Trump and what else is happening.
Yeah, I mean, my point just about it not being a winning issue is that Trump really took his greatest hits with COVID, with the response to Black Lives Matter, and then maybe you could make the case that the impeachment from the Ukraine corruption investigation is really what did him in. The over focus on Putin as this singular boogeyman is so backwards and locked in 90s and 80s politics, which defines Nancy Pelosi. And I understand that there are legitimate reasons like you laid out, right? But they're not making that case. It's a Red Scare case as opposed to no, these are larger networks of right-wing fascist authoritarian leaders throughout the globe, and they are pushing forward people like Trump. But again, offloading. Sorry?
Go ahead.
The end of my point is offloading what happened at the Capitol and making it like Putin is on the phone is such a dereliction of your duty. Yeah. And I know that Clinton was the one that floated it, and she's not in elected office.
Pelosi apparently said this on January 7th, too.
Well, the other aspect of this is these authoritarian fascist organizations. I'm not even going to say that they're groups of people who've been massaging these theories for decades. They have been testing them out in the Ukraine. They've been testing them out in Italy as far as 20 years ago. These are, and it's the patterns. I mean, this, they're doing it all over the world, right? With different electoral systems. But what they look for is what we had in the United States. We had vast income inequality. We had a two-party system that was completely out of touch and beholden to major, influences, whether it's the banking industry. We know the industry is behind the two-party system, right? And you had this divide that is prime for radicalization. Anybody who's gone past International Politics 101 knows that this is the prime opportunity to sweep in and cause any sort of dysfunction and
which they did during the civil rights movement. They also, I mean, that was a part of the tactics of the Soviet Union at that time.
And so, this is the era. To seal this point, Bernie Sanders is a reflection of that. So even if there was foreign interests involved, which I have no doubt, because I'm sure there were plenty of foreign interests involved, there were Chinese spies that we didn't even know about until recently that were, tapping into
Swalwell.
I know, crazy story. But they're, it was what better opportunity than seeing the rapid rise of Bernie Sanders and the rapid rise of Donald Trump, whether he was groomed by Putin or somebody else, or who knows what's going on. It suits their interests. If they want to make that case, make that case. Instead, what they don't want to do, as you just said, Emma, is take responsibility for failing the Democratic Party, for not investing, for not talking about key issues, for not caring about the economy in a real way, and using these like.
It's also a diversion. Like, you've got Dianne Feinstein, and I'm going to credit her with, an awareness of where she is and what she's talking about here. That I don't know is.
That's a little generous, Sam.
I'm just saying.
Credit her for having her eyes open.
It's been widely reported. It's been, I want to put that caveat in there. I'm not being rude.
Sam, that'll be you very soon. We're going to be saying the same thing.
Widely reported that she is having cognitive issues. Nevertheless, she has been quoted as saying that she doesn't support punishing Cruz or Hawley or any of the other people in the. Here it is. I think the Senate is a place of freedom, and people come here to speak their piece. I mean, look.
Is this a group therapy session, or is this the United States government?
It's just effing nuts. I mean, I think there's certainly some type of grounds to say that they participated and encouraged this insurrection. But B, she is a member of the opposition political party. I'm sorry, even if you cannot make a technical legal case here, it should be your position that these people are bad, that they what they did was not justified. Like, this is just politics. And the idea that, like, I don't think that in their mind, they're like, well, if we blame Putin, we're not necessarily having to deal with some of the material failures to deliver material goods to people. I think it's really an opportunity to say, like, we can put this in a box. It is a threat that is outside of us and doesn't interfere with our attempts to sort of get along with our colleagues. And it's that guy's fault and not their fault and not their fault. They don't want to get into a fight. And it's very easy to just say it's Putin because, like you say, Putin could be involved to some extent. I would be surprised if he wasn't certainly happy about this. I don't think he was on the phone going like, make sure the guy with the horns doesn't get into the middle of the mix. It's going to be embarrassing. Like that. There's none of that.
Satan could be involved. The Babadook could be involved. Again, she has zero evidence for this, Hillary, and she throws this out there because it soothes her. But yet there are millions of people that still listen to her. I mean, I read the replies to this tweet that she proudly tweeted out, which is where we got this clip from. Oh, thank you for speaking the truth, Miss Clinton. I mean, people eat this stuff up, and it's dangerous. It's dangerous. It feeds into the aberration myth that Joe Biden continues to perpetuate, and a lot of people in the Democratic Party do. It's really bad, and it's a fantasy that people tell themselves.
Well, what's even crazier right now is it seems like Mitch McConnell is putting more effort into separating himself from these actors than the Democratic Party is. I mean, just a half an hour ago, he publicly stated that the president was inciting these insurrectionists.
Yep.
Which is far more than I've heard Dianne Feinstein saying.
Well, honestly, they should not even ask her for quotes at this point. It's like, I don't know what to say.
We're going to talk about the power sharing thing once this gets hammered out with McConnell and Schumer too. There's reason to think that it's not as bad as it sort of seems on its face, according to Adam Gentleson. Adam Gentleson, it seems quite convinced. I don't know if convinced is too strong of a word, but he seems to think that we are headed to getting rid of the filibuster on legislation. Yeah. And if that's, guys like this, they don't generally just pick it out of a hat, right? They talk to people. I mean, this, Nomi. They talk to people around Senate offices and taking people's temperature in a sense of what they expect. And it's quite possible that what we're seeing is Biden, there are going to be a couple of weeks of him just like sending legislation and seeing it get blocked. Maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a month, seeing it get blocked by a Republican Senate, and then use that, start to build the case for filibuster. I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
And maybe that's what that deal is with Schumer and McConnell. I mean, I first off, I've read several takes and I've listened to his interviews, Adam Gentleton's interviews, since he's been on this book tour. And what I find interesting is just, it's not a surprise, but how much Biden can actually do just in the executive branch to get us out of this mess right now, immediately. And I think hopefully he'll be leaning, I mean, he said that he's going to be leaning, whether it's rent relief or moratoriums, it's, obviously COVID is a big part of this. We may not even need McConnell, but I think maybe that's what that conversation is, because the game might, I'm just throwing this out there. Here's my little theory, that the threat is we're just going to keep throwing stuff at you and embarrass you for not doing these relief packages that Republicans need as well. And we're going to spend the next 6 months blaming the Republican Party. Either you work with us or we embarrass the shit out of you and we take out ads in every single major market where we have a swing district, whatever. Hopefully. I don't know. From your mouth to God's ears. I'm sure when you talk about Gentleton's
but
interview,
you're a rational
you're talking about
actor.
on this show.
Yeah.
Yes. I saw your interview.
Did you listen, Nomi? Yes.
I did. And I also heard it on other ones because that's the kind of nerd I am, because we're trying to get him.
Was the best.
Can you help me get him on our show? Is that a thing that we should put out in the universe on air?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think we have contacts. I don't see why you wouldn't. We can do that.
Listening, Adam? Who else can I do this? Let's just
Bernie,
take 10 minutes.
Bernie, come on, Nomika's
Bernie.
show.
Calling from a
Everybody
510 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sam. Sonny from San Jose.
Sonny from San Jose.
I wanted to talk about the Senate power sharing agreement.
All right. Well timed. Go ahead.
So, if they're giving away their power, what are they going to do on the committees? Like when they're voting for like appointees and stuff. If it gets to be like a tie, are they not going to move forward with the like appointees and stuff?
Okay. So let me read you this tweet. Let's pull up this tweet from Adam Gentleton. We just, he says power sharing is an overstatement. The functional reality of the Senate will not be noticeably different under this than it would be if Democrats had a bigger majority. The only significant difference is that committees will be evenly divided, but if ties go to Democrats, that's fine. So how this works, Senate has to approve an organizing resolution that sets committee sizes and membership under the current rules. That resolution needs 60 votes to pass. There's some debate about whether the Senate should go nuclear to abolish the 60-vote threshold. Senate must, and I think, abolish the 60-vote threshold in the short to medium term. I think that's unrealistic to go nuclear in the organizing resolution for two main reasons. One, the functional difference in the Senate's daily operation is not major. Second, the votes will be there for reforming the filibuster if and when it becomes clear that the Republican obstruction is major. Okay, so the idea is this. I mean, look, just because it's on committees, there's always going to be a tie, and the tie will be broken by either Kamala Harris or, an understanding of that happening. And, I guess theoretically, the Republicans could say, we're going to force you to bring her down here for every single vote. And then, I guess she could come, but they're not going to do that. So I think operationally speaking, the lack of a clear, obvious day one majority on these committees is not going to be a big deal. Democrats are going to win every fight that all Democrats on a committee vote for. So your concern, and it was initially my concern too, seems to be misplaced. The real issue is going to be the question of the filibuster and filibuster reform. And that's where the road will meet the rubber will meet the road.
Okay. When do Ossoff and Warnock get sworn in, or have they already been sworn in?
I think they've been sworn in. I don't see why they wouldn't have been at this point. I would imagine they will be sworn in. Georgia just certified, so I would imagine, I don't know, within a day or two.
Okay. Then that's really all.
All right, man. Don't feel so disappointed. It was a good question.
Well, all right, guys. Thanks a lot for taking my call.
Bye.
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 Calling from a 647 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 647. 647. Bye-bye. Oh,
Up.
Sorry, we
So
lost
close.
you. Calling from a 631 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is my username is Plumes of Happy on Twitter, and I'm calling about the Movement for a People's Party, which I'm very frustrated with right now. It's a grift. You know, Katie Halper made an argument yesterday that, you know, not everyone's a sellout, but not everyone's a grift. Yeah, but this is a grift. It's not a political party. It's a 501c4 domestic nonprofit corporation that is not registered with the FEC to be able to engage in campaigning. So everything about primarying Democrats after, you know, that they vote the wrong way, they're not primarying anyone.
Well,
you know, I'm with the.
Listen.
What was that?
Let me just make a point here. And I'm certainly not here to defend that group. What they're doing is not that strange. They can form a 527 later to challenge, you know, to primary. The only thing about it is that their funding is a little bit obscure. You can't tell who's actually.
I was about to get into that too. I wanted to add that. Yeah, yes, it's a dark money group. Almost half of it is unaccounted for funds, according to OpenSecrets.org. So what I'm saying about this is they don't care about policy. They don't care about Medicare for all. We read their slacks on the.
Well, let's put up the slacks. This is. I mean, I wasn't planning to talk about this.
Can I just fact check one real quick point about
C4? Their strategy isn't to get Medicare for all. Their strategy is to smear the squad and to tie them in with Democrats in order to gain their party. They're not interested in policy. They're interested in elevating the grift of Nick Branagh, former organizers who were involved with it, say that it's a terrible working experience. One person said, I expected this from the Democrats to be treated like this, but not from this
All right.
party.
Well, wait a second. All right. So hold on for 1 second, because I think I may have seen your initial tweet. I don't know if that was you, but there were images from the Slack channel. And my understanding is that nobody from the People's Party has said we're not legit. And in fact, seeing something on Twitter that a lot of people were getting purged from that Slack channel because they were afraid that they were leaking stuff. But this was part of my complaint, you know, about what Jimmy Dore was using to force the vote for, frankly. And that's when I basically got off the bus. I mean, I had privately gotten off the bus a little bit earlier, but that's when I sort of began to make a more of a public issue about it. Do we have those? Let's put those up. I wasn't going to talk about this today, but so here, let's just look at these. Okay. Somebody says the fraud squad are the biggest enemies of the MPP. If Justice Dems worked, if reforming the Democratic Party worked from within, why form a People's Party outside the Democrats? MPP has to be the focus first on the progressive in Democrat. You know, now you could interpret that as saying, well, we wouldn't need this party if that was working. But if they felt it wasn't working, why would you have to make it not work by putting a wedge in there? You could say, like, thank goodness it's not working. But we know that Justice Democrats have had the most success in primarying establishment Democrats of any organization that I've seen in at least my adult lifetime.
Certainly relevant to the Green Party strategy, which I think People's Party should sort of show how they learned from that.
Well, it's the same people, right? It's the same people.
Is it?
I mean, what the not Justice
Well,
Democrats.
the media
Joe
figures.
Stein people, yeah.
The media figures are certainly similar.
All right.
Well,
yeah.
wait. One thing that's really important that I'm glad that he mentioned about the C4, it's not that it's a C4. 501c4s are very common, but they're supposed to be used for nonpartisan, meaning no party involvement.
Yes.
It's supposed to be nonpartisan educational. So when you go to a training that like Move On does, they have a C4 division that trains anybody. It's not one party. It could be independents. It could be Green Party people. Hell, Republicans could go if they want. But it is not under the FEC. This is
It's what allows them to hide their donors.
But I don't know.
You actually have to pay taxes and you do have to go through a certain level of accountability. So it's not completely dark. There are.
I just think that this is. I think. Hold on for 1 second. 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 Listen. The question of them being like legitimately nonpartisan, I think that's just like, people should not get caught up on that. They're not promoting the Democrats. They're not promoting the Republicans. They're not an actual party. They're just like, they're a group that has the word party in their name at this juncture. So I don't think that like it's worth, I don't think it's worth getting caught in the weeds about this. Their funding's a little bit obscured, but it's not completely dark. If they wanted to challenge Democrats and they started to come to, like actually primary people under their own party thing, they'll probably establish a different organization. The point is to get back to these tweets, because this is the point. The point is, if you want to come out and argue we should have a third party, then you do it. But the idea of hijacking Medicare for all and saying that this is established is like, where you say like the reason why we don't have Medicare for all is because of AOC or Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib or because of Jamal Bowman or because of the Justice Democrats, you're lying. And the reason why you're lying is clear in these tweets. And that's the point. Because I will have an argument with somebody who thinks a third party running against, look, there was, I think, a Green candidate who ran against AOC. If I remember correctly, there was one in the primary, I think, in the Democratic primary.
But it couldn't have been if it was in the primary.
Well, I think they, Green, and they just registered as a Democrat, I think. I'm not sure. But my point being is that, like, go challenge her. But this idea that like you're a national organization that's attacking her because of Medicare for all, when in fact, if the squad votes for it and fails, they have broken with the Dems and demanded something in exchange. The plan is to use FTV as a wedge to break leftists and Medicare for all supporters away from the Dems. There it is.
Thank you for the strategy. And the way that the C4, why the words movement, it's movement for a people's party, not people's party, because if it is a party, you can't do that under a C4. And there's, more or less some oversight there. But what I see this as is a slush fund to target the most powerful voices in bringing progressives into the Democratic movement, into electoral politics, which is happening. It's not happening at a rate that I really want it to happen at, much faster, but whether it's Justice Democrats or voices like ours on this show or other shows that have platforms that encourage folks to go and support these candidates or learn about these candidates or get involved in electoral politics or DSA or whatever, they have literally pointed out every single person that could be an obstructionist to their goal of, ticking off a few people. I don't even think it's that large. I think they're literally just going for, as they said in one of these Slacks, I wouldn't put it this way, but this is their term, the more naive people are in the movement. And I don't agree with that, but that is their language. That is the language that was in one of these Slacks that was released. So if their goal is just to it's a wedge issue, and simultaneously by doing that, they're character assassinating literally every single person that stands in their way, specifically and mostly women. And women of color. Women of color is very key to a lot of the hatred, not from everybody, but from some specific people. But one more thing, I know they were doing this in good faith, and there are people who genuinely want to see a third party, and they want Medicare for all, and they trust a lot of these voices that they've been watching for years, some who've made pivots very quickly, and some who've been doing this for a long time. But the reason why I brought up this is how it's been working abroad this is how it's been working abroad. You look at Italy, they started a party in conjunction with a comedian and new media. Look at Ukraine. There are many different countries where there's a rise of splintered off. We don't have a parliamentary system, but they're approaching it like it's a parliamentary system. And there's a misogyny attached to it. Bannon is working very closely in Europe with other groups right now to do very similar strategies. So, on one hand, I'm like, whatever, they're not going to get the votes. On the other hand, they're just using this as a way to character assassinate people who,
Yeah, I think, look, everything in my mind, the I mean, I think it's interesting to see that it's connected maybe internationally, or at least that's a strategy that's been exercised. But the bottom line is, like, the strategy of what is going on is very, very clear, and it needs to be made clearer. And that's the bottom line, which is this is an effort that is self-consciously designed to break off any and inhibit any type of nascent attempts to reform the Democratic Party and to make them more progressive. And on top of that, it is doing it for the benefit of a group that has established that it can do zero.
Nothing.
Like, this is not a group that we mobilized 50,000 people to march on. They had 100 people to go down there. Maybe. And it's great. And you know what was amazing about that? Somebody sent me a clip. They referenced me. And I got news for you. If you're on the steps of the Capitol and you're talking about the forces aligned against you, and even occurs to you to mention the name Sam Seder, as if I have the ability, sitting in front of an IKEA panel, okay, with gels, to impact the fight for Medicare for all in a way that could inhibit what you're doing. I got news for you. You have no idea what you're talking about. You are missing everything for the everything. You're not even missing the forest for the trees. You're not seeing the trees. You're not seeing the forest. You're down in
you're in the lake,
like acorn level.
Matt, can you put those tweets back up? Just, I want to read the one about AOC too. I mean, not the tweets, the Slack. If Justice Dems like AOC are viable, then what is the point of the MPP? If the Democratic Party can be reformed from electing progressives to it and changing it from within, why even focus on the MPP? Thank you for making that very incredible point on behalf of sane people everywhere who don't want to attack the only people who are actually fighting for regular Americans in Congress. But yeah, I mean, that's the whole point.
A lot of people have left because they joined this a few years ago when they first started with, drafting Bernie. It's like it's changed iterations many times. And even in the last few weeks, it's like they're not even talking about force the vote anymore. They're talking about Assange now. And if you mention Syria, God forbid you talk about Syria, because that seems to be some sort of trigger for people that have I don't understand I do understand what's going on. All I'm trying to say is that this is not a party.
Establishment because of that.
They're what?
I argue with people all the time. That's what they think because of your opinions on foreign policy. But these things are like this is like a Diet Powell memo outlining their intentions, which is hilarious.
It's true. Well, Plumes of Happy on Twitter, thank you for the call. I appreciate it.
One quick thing. That's only half the strategy, though. The other half is that, which is more implicit. They didn't explicitly outline this. They're humanizing the right. They're trying to get working class white right people joining with the party. You get message discipline related to that, and so it's not even-handed. It's not like they're attacking everyone. They're attacking one side, and they're humanizing the other with nuance. And that's what I would call the red-brown alliance. Yes. And that offends me.
Well, Tucker Carlson gets a lot of grace, but Tucker Carlson, he gets a lot of grace, and we're able to justify his opinions and be nuanced about that. But AOC is just the shill, right?
Yeah. So. And you know what? They'll just take every screenshot of everybody and delete the actual commentary around it and pretend that, anybody, whatever. It's ridiculous. I mean, you're right, Emma. Like, they spend more time attacking people who go on Tucker Carlson to yell at their faces than Tucker Carlson himself, who, if what I don't understand is he's like a rich kid. He's not, it's just like Trump. Tucker Carlson is a rich kid playing populist. Jimmy Dore's definitely a rich guy playing populist. And there's very, very clear misogyny. And I hope that people can look at that more carefully.
I experienced it over the weekend. I mean, whatever. Like, I'm not, it's just like not about me, but it's just like, Jesus,
Well, I think it's important you talk about it because one thing, group of women that have been facing this recently, this onslaught, thousands and thousands and thousands of tweets taken out of context, pictures out of context, whatever, attacks, threats, death threats, doxing. if we don't talk about it, people don't know, and then they don't have our backs, because the more we talk about it right now on air, the more they're going to come after us.
It was literally just because
they're coming.
Yeah, it was just because I chose to respond to one of the many things that was sent. I was just like, okay, this is a bridge too far. I had been just not responding, and I respond once, and like I'm still getting.
Well, it also tell you that muting
messages.
those people.
I know, but Sam, there's so many.
They're paid. It's not.
There's so many that I literally, it's like whack-a-mole. Like I can't, and I'm just for the most part just not looking at my notifications. But
there's also
some
the
of
thing.
them are real. Sorry, go ahead.
Somebody posted a thing with Jimmy Dore talking about Ryan Grimm is like, I wonder what his kids are going to think when they grow up and see this thing. And it's like, this is a gross guy. And then you'll have so many people, if you like just retweet that part saying, hey, why are you so obsessed with Jimmy? Why don't you give this strategy a fair shake? Like, just, I mean, to be honest,
the idea that Jimmy Dore is not the most closely associated with that strategy because of Jimmy Dore is, I'm sorry. It's just the reality of it. I mean, that's just the reality. He's made it about himself. And also the idea that Ryan Grimm's kids are going to go look at Jimmy Dore's shit when they're older is also completely out of their mind. First off,
he places himself
aren't even gonna
central.
Look at my shit. The idea that they're going to go look and see what Jimmy Dore said about me is just out of like. This
but he's the center of the universe. He's the center of the universe, Sam. Right? Yeah.
So he's a nexus. Yeah.
Well,
but I mean, it's a veiled threat too. I mean, let's just be real. You throw somebody's kids into it, that's essentially a veiled threat.
Well, he called Ryan an access journalist. Like, are we joking here? Are we joking? I mean,
coming from Jimmy Dore, who's like, AOC won't come on my show.
No, coming from Tulsell Jimmy Dore. Like, I genuinely the thing about Ryan bothered me so much because there are so few journalists that actually are able to do work in this very, productive way and who have great perspectives and really are challenging the powerful. And Ryan's one of them. And it's just like, what? Come on. I like Ryan too. Fine. Okay. I think he's a nice guy and he does good work. So whatever. Yeah. I guess, I'm a sellout. So.
His kids are going to hate him regardless of what Jimmy Dore says. That's just the way the kids
That's
are,
how it goes, yeah.
Experience.
All those times they had to show up on camera. I love, if you guys haven't seen the Ryan Grimm with his kids on camera report, whether it's at the Capitol or whatever, they're the funniest videos. They're always like tugging at him to go to the bathroom.
So let's move to some other right-wingers, shall we? Ainsley Earhart and Charlie Hunt on Fox and Friends yesterday. Remember, this is the media organization that worked into their deal with the Seth Rich family. Don't announce that we've made this deal and we have conceded that we basically just blew up a conspiracy theory until after the election, because we are so not tied to the Republican Party, and that's why we would want to do that. But here's Ainsley Earhart.
It's just going to backfire. I mean, it makes Trump supporters mad when they're told they're in a cult.
Yep.
75 million people voted for him.
Yeah.
And now what's making them just all of a sudden come out with this message? Because we know they've thought it for years, but now they're actually being vocal about it.
Yep. Well, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that they feel like they're gaining the White House. They feel like they've got 2 years of political control, and by they I mean not just Democrats, but also a lot of people like Katie Couric in the media who feel like they are part of the Democrats in politics, and they feel like they've got to get it all done, and they got 2 years to get it done because they know that usually their crazy when they fly their freak flag with their crazy policies, American voters usually turn it off. 2 years from now, I would imagine the election is going to be probably a pretty tough election for Democrats. So they got to get it all done now, and so that's why they're coming out with all this stuff, because they want to. This is their one shot, because they know that if voters get to vote on it, and it's also why Joe Biden didn't really run a campaign on issues. He didn't want to talk about issues. All he wanted to talk about is Trump is mean. Trump, I'm going to make all the craziness stop. That's what his campaign was, because if they actually are caught talking about the issues, they lose every single time.
Charles, always good to talk.
Yeah. Now, there's a couple of points I just want to make out. One is that the party that has the presidency almost always loses that off-year election. So that's not such a bold prediction. The other is all the issues that Donald Trump talked about in this campaign, which were that Joe Biden was sleepy and that what else? What were the other issues?
Law
he
and
talked
order.
about? Oh,
Law
yeah.
and
No, I'm
order.
sorry.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
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 Good.
Law and order. That was a great issue. We need to have
Hillary.
law and order.
Hillary.
And,
he ran against Hillary.
Right.
That was it.
well,
and then
no,
and then
to be
socialism,
fair,
almost Bernie too. Yeah, right.
also ran against testing against the coronavirus because that's just going to give you more cases. That's the way you develop more cases, by testing more. That was a very strong issue for him. What was I'm trying to think what the other one was. Everybody should get the same treatment that he got in the hospital when he got COVID, except you're not going to. And that was that issue was, not so strong, I guess, for him. The whole, I got treated as if I was the president, so I didn't die from this. So hypothetically, you may not die if you get treated like you're the president of the country, if you get COVID.
Right.
That could be it.
Kind of a big blow to his, I'm not part of the establishment, I'm not an elitist brand with his golden toilet or whatever. Also, Fox News needs to quit conflating the media and the Democratic Party. I mean, they do that all the time. One, it's easy, it's lazy, it's, every elite is the same. We kind of talked about this in some conflation that Glenn Greenwald was making last week, even though obviously to less of an insane extent here. But it's lazy, and it's also a little bit of anti-Semitism just sprinkled in there. It's intentional. Yeah.
It's intentional. It's like, people forget. I don't know if they told you this, but back when Roger Ailes was there, he would send out memos every day and say every single show in their own flavor, even, the news shows, has to touch on all of these issues. They were directed to say things like Barack Hussein Obama over and over again. So it's not subtle. I don't know how it's working now at Fox News, but, this stuff is all intentional.
And it is true. Biden's issues were definitely not forefronted in the general election. And it was true that people voted, and I think to a large extent, that's why he won the primary too, frankly, because people were inspired to vote against the fact that our president was insane and was literally denying the existence of a pandemic as hundreds of thousands of Americans died. So if you put aside that part, maybe they've got an argument about
and Trump was
510 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Morning, Sam from California. This is Kenny calling from Berkeley. How you doing?
Kenny from Berkeley, California. How are you? What's on your mind?
I'm doing well. I want to start with one question. So I've called into the show before, and I just have to ask, who clips the YouTube videos that you guys put on your channel, and who puts on the titles for those? Is it Brendan?
Matt and Brendan pull clips occasionally. We all do. And the titling, there's a couple other people who are remote who do it.
Oh, well, those remote titling people are excellent. The last time I called in, you pulled a clip and you titled it, Why We Keep Pounding on Ben Shapiro's WAP, which is just marvelous.
Oh, that was me.
That could have been Matt. Matt puts out the first draft, and if they're gold like that, then they stay.
It's either me or Dorsey. I remember that one.
That was you, Matt. That is beautiful. So thank you. That was wonderfully done. I'm calling this morning because, Sam, I know that you have always kind of protested against this idea that, just by virtue of demographic change in America, the Republican Party is going to die. I wonder if I could get an updated take from you on this, post-insurrection, because, we see people trying to distance themselves from the Republican Party in numerous ways at this point, whether it's Colin Powell or, even Lisa Murkowski.
But that's not demographics, is it? That's not demographics.
No, that's my point. I think that by there might be something new here, and we might actually see the dying of the Republican Party faster than one might have originally thought. And that might actually open the opportunity for a new leftist party to actually emerge on the national scale. What do you think?
I mean, I I think the idea of that party dying is wrong. I mean, I think it could be more of a rump party on some level. But remember, they're strong in enough states that they can control the Senate without too much, with still like with 40% of the population. This dynamic exists in many states and across the country. I think that the Democrats would need to take advantage of this moment in a way that they will not take advantage of it. I think they, at least in terms of like the elected Democrats in the Senate in particular, and the House, I think that's, hopefully it's changing a little bit. I think that, it's conceivable, down the road maybe, but
Sam, that's why they're thinking so long term. That's why they want to play these games in the legislatures right now and change the at least for the presidential elections, electoral, because they know that, and they've known this for years, they're facing a tidal wave in demographics. Simultaneously, though, there is a rising right, like young male radicalization. I just don't know what that looks like in numbers. I mean, has anybody looked at the numbers? I should have done this for the presidential to see what the age breakdowns are in terms of support of Trump.
I have. I would imagine
those are the numbers.
Overwhelming.
I'll try to find it now.
But the Democrats, it's going to be 50-50 in the Senate. The Democrats are going to have gone in there with 40 million more votes. Is that right?
No, that's
or 40 million more people, I should say. I wonder how many more votes they garnered at a 50-50 split. That's really the question in my mind. So not just the more Americans that they represent, but how many more votes they actually represent. And so I think like demographically, I think it favors Democrats. I think also demographically, it favors the left parts of the Democratic Party and maybe the left outside of the Democratic Party, demographically speaking. But I'm not quite sure that demographics is destiny in the way that, I remember that Tixera and Judas book that I read, 20 years ago, saying, the coming Democratic majority, there's a lot of things that can go sideways. You now have a court which more than likely for decades is going to shoot down any attempts in many respects to sort of equalize the playing field in terms of when it comes to voting rights. So I don't know. I mean, my take is more or less the same. It's really a question of like, how much do Democrats hold the Republicans to account? And frankly, how well does Joe Biden do? I mean, like when I see stuff like they're going to do the Defense Production Act, I mean, look, in a world where Joe Biden ends up doing $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, I think is unlikely, but that type of student debt relief in a world where we have unemployment insurance that continues on while employment is high, regardless, and extended unemployment benefits that continue on regardless of time frame, but more in terms of how the economy does. And in a situation where we see hundreds of billions of dollars going to cities and states, and where he really does deliver, 150 million doses of the vaccine in 100 days, let's say. I mean, if he does that kind of stuff, I think people are going to be impressed. It's not going to be necessarily sufficient for me, in terms of what I want. If there is like Medicare buy-in at age 50 and Medicare for, everybody under the age of 18, these type of things, there is an opportunity for his legacy to be significantly more dramatic than Barack Obama's. And there is, I get at least a sense, an awareness amongst the Biden administration, a sense that they realize on some level that there was missed opportunities under the Obama administration.
They said it out loud. They said it out loud in his speech.
Appreciate the call.
Do you want those exit poll numbers for age or no?
Yeah, I mean, is it national? I'm just.
I had a hard time finding it, but it's on status. Whatever, I can't say it. 18 to 29, it was a 62-35 split for Biden, 52-45 for 30 to 44, and then it gets evens out in the 45 plus.
So my perspective is the demographics are undeniably suited towards the left, without a doubt. It doesn't mean that there aren't going to be more naturally, there's always, as people age and start to vote more, there's always a group that is more conservative because they're voting along their best interests, right? But I think ultimately, this is why the census was so important and hopefully wasn't completely screwed up this time. We have to understand what the demographics look like, but simultaneously, there are people who are moving back to their where they came from because of COVID, we don't even know what the composition of cities is going to look like as opposed to 2 years ago. Like, what does New York look like now versus 2 years ago? So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this stuff all plays out. Simultaneously, the Democratic Party has to start investing in the South because the demographics are there. And they're just, we saw it with Georgia, but they're really there. And maybe that's something Jimmy Harrison, because he's the chair of the South Carolina party, maybe he has a better sense of, and maybe they can put some more money in. But I feel like the white folks that they were trying to win over in the Rust Belt, that were over the age of 65, that used to be Obama, they're gone. If you didn't get them in this last election, they're gone. Start investing invest everywhere, but really start investing in the future.
Apparently, I was reading that the Biden people are, at the very least, rhetorically, they are speaking like they're going to invest in all of these parties across the country. And that is, look, maybe they will, maybe they won't, but that is a marked difference from the Obama administration, which was like, it just came in and just said, crash all that. That's done.
It's all me.
And
also Tom Perez, Tom Perez said he was going to do it. And then he gave voucher. He basically means tested it. He said, well, if you can fill out this, grant, and it was like nothing, no money. It basically paid for a mailer and that's it. And so he said, look, I've been investing in all these states. No, you.
Means testing state parties is very Democratic Party.
Let's play this. Which one should we play? Should we play number 8?
I would start with 9 and then go to 8.
Folks.
Or we could save 9 for tomorrow and just do 8 today.
Yeah, I guess maybe let's do 9 tomorrow because we'll be able to test the theory that Mike Lindell has about what's actually going to happen tomorrow, and we'll be able to play that tomorrow. But here is Mike Lindell. He is the CEO of MyPillow. Longtime listeners of this program will remember that I had pointed him out when I was covering the debate between Clinton and Trump in Las Vegas. And they have the closest thing I can imagine to what it's like. It's sort of like a red carpet type of thing afterwards, where reporters ring this sort of amoeba-like circle.
It's the spin room, and I was there. And
no, it's not the spin room. It was actually in it was where the press are, and they come in and they walk around, but they're untouched, and it was like a cavalcade of it was like one of those bad Avenger movies where every right-wing supervillain comes through. James O'Keefe was there, and they're just walking through. They're all part of it, and they're just trying to get their media attention. And Mike Lindell was traveling around with the Trump people and I think Sean Hannity. And so he was in from the get-go. He's been a longtime advertiser. His whole company was built on WABC in New York, actually. Advertiser for those right-wing radio guys. And here he is on the Right Side podcast. And
creative title.
He is concerned because
Mo, we should do a podcast called the really right side.
Yeah.
Or the left side.
Right.
The right left side.
Here is Mike Lindell saying that he's being canceled.
Magnify that by 20-fold. I have one of the worst. I found out yesterday I made it to the top. It's called Sleeping Giant.
Wait, pause it just for 1 second.
whatever.
Look at that picture of him on the left holding the pillow.
It's too much.
He's hugging his pillow, and he is complaining. This guy's a multimillionaire complaining about a Twitter handle called Sleeping Giants.
I have one of the worst. I found out yesterday. I made it to the top. It's called Sleeping Giant. Sleepinggiant.com, whatever. They're a watchdog group that claim to be. They're out of Silicon Valley, the most evil people on the planet. And these guys get hired, and they're attacking not only my pillow, many other companies out there, but they're attacking my vendors. They go to people. I just got off the phone with Bed Bath & Beyond. They're dropping my pillow. Just got off the phone not 5 minutes ago. Kohl's, all these different places. So you know what? If you're out there, maybe you know these guys don't understand. They're scared, like a Bed Bath & Beyond. They're scared. We are good partners. In fact, I told them, you guys come back anytime you want. But it's not their fault that they're scared, because they don't realize these are fake people that are on there going, we're gonna boycott your store if you don't drop my pillow. And they're
I love the name of his company, because it just sounds like he's talking about his pillow, because he
His
goes,
own pillow.
My vendors are dropping my pillow. I'm like
66% off.
My blankie.
With the coupon code RSBN is scrolling underneath him as he's saying this. It's literally like a paid ad.
He used QAnon as a promo code. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But
I could be
here's the
wrong.
thing. This whole economic boycott, I guess, mechanism, people should understand this was pioneered by his people. And literally, I'm talking like right-wing Christian organizations pioneered this. They boycotted, Pixar because Lenny the shark in some like animated thing was, teaching people to be transgender or something. Like they did this with Howard Stern. They did it they have done this over and over again. They innovated this. And so now people are just using the free marketplace as a way. I mean, frankly, they just don't want people profiting off of this. Right. And, it's not like he hasn't commingled his business with his political advocacy. He's literally on there, with a coupon code. Like he's doing is, he's doing like, steal the vote gets you the QAnon, gets you a discount code. This guy, I don't think I've ever seen a candidate more apt for this type of political boycott than my pillow. I mean, it's like, I think it's perfectly legit to do this at any time. They tried to do it. Mike Cernovich tried to do it with this show, went to the advertisers, said Sam Seder was making, anti-rape jokes. And he used the word rape in that anti-rape joke. And so and my advertisers were going to leave. And frankly, I didn't blame them. It's not their job to assess the validity of these critiques. But I mean, Mike Lindell has put it out there enough so that it's quite easy for people to assess these things. And so it's just a function of his.
He's just a bad business guy.
It's a commodification.
You should just get a factory, cut the middleman, do it yourself, buy your ads on Fox News. They'll still let you doing that. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's just
it's the commodification of victimhood. I mean, and we are seeing it again with Josh Hawley too, right? Like, oh, woe is me. I'm going to go on Fox and whine about my book not getting published. Just kidding. The publisher is offloading it to a subsidiary where it's still going to get published. Like, now he's drummed up more interest in his book. And now he is a victim of the woke left that's canceling him. And so then people are going to be more motivated to buy My Pillow, buy Josh Hawley's book. Like, the grift is so open and brazen as the promo code scrolling beneath him as he claims to be getting persecuted.
Are there like consultants who do this? Because it's just so genius. They all have the same strategy. They're like, never let a good crisis go to waste. How do we commodify every single aspect of this? There's got to be somebody who's like, this is how you do it. And now there's a Josh Hawley My Pillow package. They're going to do an infomercial.
Serious?
No, I'm kidding.
I was going to say, that's borderline, absolutely possible.
Is it
beyond
you, Emma,
possible.
that's the consultant?
Beyond possible.
Potentially. That's how I make some extra money on the side.
This is the last time I ever want to mention this guy's name coming up right now. I never want to say this guy's name again, maybe just in context of something else. But here's James Comey. Like, honestly, if you want to be suspicious about something, why the F is James Comey doing this? This is not the first time he said this. This is like
second time
publicly. I mean, honestly, I have a theory. It is a little bit off the wall. I've mentioned it on the show before. Let's play the James Comey thing first.
I think he has to think about that. I'm not saying he should do it. He has to think about it as he figures out the best way to heal this.
He's responding to a question of whether Trump should be pardoned, if Biden should pardon Trump.
Yeah, here's Comey again pushing the idea that Joe Biden should pardon Donald Trump.
I think he has to think about that. I'm not saying he should do it. He has to think about it as he figures out the best way to heal this nation, both spiritually and physically, as we battle the raging pandemic. And one possibility would be for him to list all the many crimes of Donald Trump and then offer that to him as a pardon. And the acceptance of that pardon would be an admission of guilt. So I don't know how the disgraced former president would feel about it, but he at least should consider it as a possible way of moving the country forward and not letting Donald Trump occupy center stage as the new president tries to steer us in a positive direction.
I mean, now Comey had come out with this a little bit more forcefully like a week or two ago. And I think he sort of now is backing off it and making it just sort of like contemplate it. But it really feels like what Comey wants is no investigations to go further. You know, there's investigations, like we got investigation maybe ramping up in Georgia about his interference with the election there. But I think there's a lot of investigations that are starting to happen in terms of his finance and Imagine in New York State. And I can't help but think that like Comey, for whatever reason, wants to avoid that. Like the idea that pardoning Donald Trump is going to lead to any type of healing. What? Are you out of your mind at this point?
Are you going to, I mean, the most charitable interpretation of that nonsense is that he just has complete Washington brain. Like it's the, bipartisan mind melting, just complete garbage. It's like not the same, but another Washington brain example I was thinking of was when Susan Collins she said her first thought when the insurrectionists came, or attempted insurrectionists, was that it was Iran attacking finally. What? Like that's
her second thought was like, maybe I should send them pizza.
Yeah, right. And then her second thought was that she was very disappointed in them. But I think Sam's theory about this is pretty interesting.
Here's my theory. Now, I will also say that I think yours is probably more likely. And then I would say there's like variations of that Washington brain that sort of, filter through there. But I still contend that it really has nothing to do with Russia per se, but it has to do with money laundering. And just based upon conversations I had with I know you were friendly with him too, with Wayne Barrett, who is a famous reporter for the Village Voice, who was sort of famously on the Donald Trump beat for years, who kept saying Felix Seder is the whole issue. Felix Seder, I think largely understood to be involved in money laundering, was also largely understood to be an asset of the FBI's, possibly the CIA's. Loretta Lynch wrote an affidavit in support of him for providing information to the FBI,
right,
in support of him not being punished for stabbing a guy with a champagne flute in a bar fight.
This is like,
and
we need the soundboard noise for, I mean, this is a genius theory of Sam's that I didn't know if you're saying publicly. So I'm glad you are.
Well, I mean, I just want to stipulate that this is all just speculation on my part. Although everything I've said to this point is been reported. It was also reported that Seder was a special advisor, had a business card working for Donald Trump, They're involved in a couple of business deals together. This has all been reported. There's a lot of people who suspect that Seder's money laundering would involved Donald Trump's buildings. And then this is where my speculation comes in. I don't know if Donald Trump knew about this or not, but I wonder, I'll do it in the form of questions. Why did no prosecutor in the 30 years that he was doing all sorts of dirty crap in New York, there wasn't a single city or state prosecutor who pursued any of this? Maybe, the answers could range from they just didn't find anything wrong, or that they just weren't interested, or that they got campaign donations, or that at one point they get along in investigating and it stops and they get a blockage that comes from the feds. The other question I have is and you can go back to look at contemporaneous reporting at the time in October of 2016, why was there talk about a mutiny in the New York FBI office? The one that found the Anthony Weiner stuff, the one that was a mutiny against Comey, who they knew was investigating Donald Trump. My speculation is that and I don't know if Trump knew about it or not. I mean, this guy has such chutzpah, we would say, that I believe that he probably didn't even realize he was protected, if he was, from any type of prosecution. The guy just thinks he's above the law.
Right. It was ingrained.
And we know Rudy Giuliani
Conditioned him.
Had all sorts of relationships with the New York FBI.
Of course.
From his time in fighting the Italian mob, which weirdly enough also made openings for the Russian mob. But that's probably
right, exactly.
But
such a mean thing.
But I think that there is, I know from Massachusetts, we had a Whitey Bulger situation where the Boston FBI had Whitey Bulger was an informant, allowed him to do all sorts of horrible shit that they did not want to come out. And they hid that.
As portrayed by Johnny Depp in that movie.
And they hid it for decades. And
he wasn't protected.
and so I don't know. There's some nexus going on there. And remember, Mueller did not investigate the financial transactions.
Yeah.
He made a point to limit the scope and say so publicly. Why?
Well, so the other thing is Sam and Emma, but Wayne Barrett was the first person, let's just be very clear, first person to ever report on Donald Trump. So it's not just that he wrote a book on him, first person to report on him, specifically around a deal with the Commodore Hotel in which Trump wanted this to be his first big deal, and he couldn't get it passed. He wanted a tax abatement, and the economic, I forgot the name of the division. It doesn't exist in the same way anymore, but it was basically overseeing big real estate deals in New York City at the time. And they denied his request. So what did Trump do? Trump said, you know what? My dad is a major donor to both the Democratic mayor and the Democratic governor. And he pushed his way through to get the vote. Dick Ravitch, of course, rejected it, got basically spit onto his face. It's a big story, right? And that abatement scheme literally paved the path for these money laundering real estate schemes that not just Donald Trump is doing, but pretty much all major developers make their money right now in New York City up until COVID by these major purchases where foreign oligarchs park their money in real estate in New York City.
Safety deposit boxes, essentially.
Exactly. And it drives up the cost of real estate. I mean, this is something I ran on, and I got so much pushback from people that I thought I had somehow I didn't know it was something I couldn't touch because New York lawmakers don't touch it because they take money from developers and they take money or support the police unions, and they don't touch it for a reason. But the problem is that's what's is one of the major reasons why New York City is becoming so unaffordable, and neighborhoods are rezoned. And
got these massive towers that are basically empty.
And, the money is coming from everywhere. But Donald Trump created that model. So if you start digging into Trump, where else is it going to lead?
I think that's a big part of it. All right.
You don't get this kind of analysis on other shows, I'm telling you. No, it's good. I mean, that's like seriously amazing insight from both of you.
I mean, we'll see. I have a feeling we'll never hear about any of this, to be honest with you. But that's just my end of the show. Complete speculation, caveat, asterisk, all that on that. So, take
Comey's
it for what it's worth. Calling from a 917 area code. You are the final caller of the day.
Hi, me?
Yeah.
Hi. Alex from New York. I have fun question for the fun man. In a physical fight, who do you think would win? Trump versus Giuliani and Nancy Pelosi versus Hillary Clinton?
Ooh, what is this?
I think Hillary's taken all those.
I love this question.
Hillary versus Juliana? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm saying Hillary would probably be the toughest in a fight.
Hillary would completely wreck Pelosi. I don't see Pelosi as being a real fighter.
I think Giuliani and Pelosi could be knocked down, honestly, with a feather.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think Trump.
That's anti-Italian discrimination, and I won't have it on this show.
Trump, I feel like it just depends on which way his weight starts to shift.
Yeah, no, but he's not going to be scrappy enough. He's going to just back out. I mean, he would take the easy route out. Hillary would be vicious.
Down the tower,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like Pelosi.
Good question. Appreciate the call.
Giuliani would bite you in a fight, right? He'd bite your ear off or something. Yeah, he'd claw at you. He'd use his fingernails. He'd be really nasty.
I feel like Giuliani honestly will tip over in just like a heartbeat. I feel like he would just be down.
Sweat pouring off him.
Totally. My God. Yeah, exactly.
All right, couple IMs, then we're getting out of here. Emma's Pokemon card collection. I just moved to New York City. I was wondering if you guys have a person you like in the New York City mayorality race.
Not yet.
I don't
Not yet.
either. I got to dig into this more.
I have, and I'm not.
Have you been the Yang train wreck of Iran has been?
Yeah, I'm still waiting to see more negative videos.
We'll be covering this on our show if you guys want to tune in the coming.
Today?
No. I'm sorry, not today. Okay. In the coming weeks, we're going to start.
We need
picking
more
up the
candidates. Jeez.
I think we do. Yeah, just a few. I'm not a fan right now of any of them.
Did you guys ever notice that the Jimmy Dore show YouTube description says is a comedy lifeline for people on the left and right, but definitely not the center? Lyle took phone sound started working once you took John's call. Also, question on apples. You said which is the best apple, and the Honeycrisp and that J starting apple. I forget. Those were overrated, right? But I agree. But I forget your favorite one. Right now, my favorite apple is Snapdragon. I think if you Google it, you can find that it is my favorite apple. So that's not a question you need to ask me. Yeah, Honeycrisp, definitely overrated. Sam, Nancy Bitchless, leader of the Democrats. Sam, do you remember the Ken Ken show episode where Reagan called in and impersonated John from San Antonio? I can't find the VOD of that episode. Actually, if you check out the TMBS special, I think that was highlighted, right, Matt?
Yeah, that was played. I think we clipped it on YouTube too, but I'm not sure.
I'm sure we did, but check out the Michael Brooks comedy special from TMBS last week, and you'll find it.
You might be able to see what episode it is by watching that.
Yeah, Shane from Canada. I could be wrong, but I think it was something like 20% accounted for 60% of transmission. I'm not sure. No, that's Jimmy Flies. Really enjoyed the TMBS tribute to Michael, the comedian. Lots of good memories. Thanks, guys. One that was missed was the right-wing Mandela doing Gavin McInnes "F you forever" rant. Yeah, that was pretty funny. Matt, I think it's important for us on the left to be cautiously optimistic of the Biden administration. Cynicism will lead to less meaningful critique because it will lead to "what did you expect" reaction. I agree. I mean, I think higher expectations are the way that you keep people in check. Science. People don't care about your feelings. Guilfoyle is older than Melania. Mommy issues, anybody? Ice Teamer, you're telling me that the type of syringe they use has a play of up to 20% in terms of vaccine doses that can be administered, and this is coming into a month 11 of the pandemic. We are a nation of suckers. Trust me, these apples taste great. That's why we call them Red Delicious. Yeah, that's a good point. MSNBC Cedar. MSNBC Cedar.
Yeah, there we go. MSNBC Seder.
I like that. I'm going to use that. Kamala will officially induct Padilla, Warnock, and Ossoff into the Senate tomorrow. Lucid Limbo, read me. You won't. Zero Sum Guy. Any chance we can get Matt, the film guy, to review Ben Shapiro's new film on a future Casual Friday show? We should do that.
Oh, my God.
Drizzle of Salt. Are people like Pelosi and Clinton capable of acting like normal people? 3 more of these. The Tim Caucus. Georgia senators begin their term on Inauguration Day. My Pillow Dude is based in my state. Weird rumors he could run for governor. Yeesh.
Yeah.
Phil from Boston. I agree with the Democratic Party needs to show the American people that Republicans do not want to provide relief. The big issue is whether or not they can properly message this fact. How will the message be injected into right-wing media sphere? Is it ultimately relevant? I think, you inject it into the normal people sphere, and that will be sufficient. Some of it will leak into their world, and some of it won't. We're not going to be in a situation in this country where we have 70% of the people voting for. It's going to be like this for probably the rest of my lifetime, anyways. And the question is, like, how can you make it solidly like this and pick up, gains bit by bit, like we did Georgia? Robbie Saltz. Has anyone watched the Night Stalker show lately? I almost lost my shit when they revealed that it was Dianne Feinstein as mayor that publicized the media and subsequently ruined all the evidence they had collected against the serial killer. Feinstein has always been a terrible person. Wow. Kuku D Tat. Emma's not wrong. The pillow guy used the coupon code QAnon for a huge discount. After it was discovered they removed it. But you can still use Q as a coupon code.
Oh my God.
Just one letter? That's pretty odd. But it represents so much.
Because QAnon can't spell QAnon.
The final I am of the day. I'm in Seattle. Hey, crew, started listening 2 years ago, but became a member last year. Not sure what I can do this year, but really thanks for everything. Today is my dog's birthday and mine. She always does perks her ears up when she hears Michael's laugh in the fun half transition. His memory is a blessing. Keep up the good work. This show radicalized me, and I'll never be a normie again. Be well in these trying times. I'll give you and your dog a shofar as a way of saying adieu. Brendan, Matt, Emma, Nomi. Check out Nomi's show coming up in just 20 minutes.
That's it.
Guys, see you tomorrow.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want. But I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie.